Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And in today's video, we're going to be talking about, did they want to break up with me?
This is a confusing concept, but we figured it's very important to talk about because sometimes an ex will break up with you even when they don't really want to.
That's true. I know it's hard to believe and it can be very confusing, and quite honestly, a lot of times behavior can be very confusing, especially when you're going through it. You know, obviously we deal with these situations all day, every day for years. So we see patterns, we see tendencies, we often see little things that when somebody says it's one thing, we know it's probably what it really means. But it can be really confusing to understand someone's behavior, especially in a breakup when you're hurt, you're sad, you're confused, and all you want to do is reconnect with them. But sometimes people feel like they have to break up with you. They need to do it. And you may not understand it, but that doesn't mean that they don't have a valid point.
Exactly. And we've talked on the channel about different reasons as to why people break up. There is one of your very popular videos that talks about anxiety and attraction and different things that can happen in a relationship that can cause it to crumble.
I think you're referring to the real reason relationships fail. That's a good video.
It is a very good video. If you haven't seen it, it is a must watch. And so in this video specifically, we're going to talk about some reasons as to why a person might feel like they have to. So starting off, we are going to talk about the classic one and one that we see very, very often, which is family pressure.
Mom. It's always mom.
And so sometimes the idea of feeling pressured by your family can be due to cultural reasons, where their family might be of a certain culture or religion in which it is customary for them to marry or to stay, to date within their own culture.
Mom. It's always mom.
It is always mom. And it's always these like slight comments like, are you sure? Why don't you date this nice Puerto Rican boy? No, I'm just kidding.
It's usually the mom of a son that wants him to date a woman of the family's religion. Oh man, I have seen that again and again.
And another one that I see often too is with long distance relationships. You know, when I was in my very long distance relationship, I remember one time he told me that his mother had told him to date somebody that lived locally instead. And I remember being so upset that he shared this information with me. I would have rather not known their conversations, but he was telling me, basically saying, this is what I'm contemplating. You know, this is something that my mom said. So
was his mom avoidant?
Consider it.
Was his mom avoidant?
I don't know. I didn't know her well enough.
Yeah.
But
Wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised either.
Yeah.
These are patterns that you do see often, is family pressuring because of culture, religion, sometimes distance or location. So consider those things where it might be more due to what the family might think rather than how they're really feeling in the relationship.
Oh, and a lot of times those sons, they don't want to break up with that girl, and they feel pressured into it, and then they're miserable afterwards, and they contact that woman for years.
Yeah, and there's the sense of regret, there's the sense of the one that got away, but they have to be willing to stand up to their parents in order to make the relationship work.
This is why we talk about individuation a lot. This is what we're talking about. Willing to stand up and say, listen, I'm going to be with this person, and you don't have to like it, but if you want me there in the holidays, you better accept them and you better accept me.
Yeah.
And that may have come straight out of Margaret's mouth.
Yeah.
I think her spirit just entered my body.
Wow. And you know, it's interesting. I don't think I would be here unless, you know, my parents did take that stand against their parents and the cultural ideas and values of the time.
That's true. And for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad was English and Irish, and my mom was Italian, and my grandmother was making comments like, why do you want to date an Italian woman? And my dad was like, but our neighbors are Italian and they're great people. I love them. Like, why wouldn't I? and he couldn't understand. But that was that mentality back then.
Yeah.
You know?
And sometimes it is.
And even today still in many places.
Yeah,
but
true. True.
Hopefully it's gotten somewhat better at least.
That's up for debate. So it could also be due to racism or also homophobia, xenophobia, meaning that somebody is so different from the culture even of your family that you grew up in, that your family is just like, well, no, this is not a good person for you. This is really unfamiliar. This is not what we're used to. We have no idea what this might mean if you get together. And so even if the person that you are dating isn't a racist or isn't a homophobe or all these other things, sometimes these ideas have been really deeply embedded into them from when they were really young.
That's true.
And so they might be feeling like, oh, there's something off here. And
there's that internal conflict. Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. And so these are other things to consider. Sometimes they have that internal conflict, but know that they feel safe and secure with you, and they know it's a healthy relationship. The other consideration that you have to make is also if your partner is enmeshed with their family. A lot of times in a family system, you like to think of it as a web, every member serves a function. And so your partner might be serving a very important function to that family that they are not willing to let go of yet.
Your partner may be the one that's keeping their parents together.
Exactly. And or providing funds to their family. And so them being in a relationship with somebody else can be a threat in their mind to, their survival as a family sometimes. So in certain situations, such as growing up in a very dysfunctional household, sometimes you'll see this pattern where the family feels they need them, and it doesn't make a lot of sense at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any more?
Let me think. And this also goes for adult children, okay? So I know we're talking about family dynamics from when adults were young and what that was like, but this carries on into even late adulthood sometimes, and sometimes for people to the grave, where they feel like they have this. I think Margaret would reference that book, Invisible Loyalties, to their family that cause them to act in ways that really isn't authentic to themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
One major reason that I see people end relationships because they feel like they have to is they've been feeling neglected for a long time. They have tried conversations many, many, many times. They've tried to tell you how they feel. They tried to tell you what they want. They try to tell you what they need. They try and tell you how things need to change. And either you haven't changed, or you haven't changed enough, or it's not enough for them, or they don't think you're ever going to change to what they need. They may feel like they have to leave. Like, for example, somebody may be with you for a long time and they say, I really want us to get married. And you're dragging your feet with them for years and years and years. And finally they're like, I'm done. I can't take it anymore. And then all of a sudden you're going to be like, I do love you. I do want to marry you. And now they're going to get angry. I've seen this all the time. Things in that similar to that. They're going to be furious at you. So you have to know how to navigate that, because when they're angry at you, it's justified.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you're willing to give them what they wanted. Yeah, that's tough. That's tricky. So in these cases, they oftentimes want something more from you. Time with you, attention, affection, an escalation of commitment, things of that nature. And they can't take living that way anymore. Maybe they're getting pressure. Maybe they're wanting a kid, and the family's pressuring them to have kids, and they're having this biological urge to have kids, but you're like, no, let's just wait longer. We're not settled yet. All these can be reasons why they feel like they have to leave. Their needs aren't being fulfilled, and there's needs that they need you, their partner, to fulfill. So sometimes people are just in situations where they feel like the only way to handle it is to end the relationship. And now the breakup is a huge wake-up call of, oh my gosh, I wasn't listening. Oh my gosh, I didn't hear them. I didn't give them what they needed. Or didn't take them seriously. Right.
And sometimes this is a situation where they have been trying to tell you for so long and they feel that you weren't paying attention.
Yes.
Okay, so note that, awareness in a relationship, being attuned to your partner is so, so, so important. Another big reason that we see for somebody feeling that need to break up, even if they don't want to, is a major life transition. So this could be moving to a different state, getting a new job, dealing with some type of external stress, like maybe there is an illness in their family that they have to attend to, grief. There's so many different situations externally that they feel obligated to attend to, and that makes them less and less emotionally available for a relationship.
I think we did an email coaching for a video maybe a month or so ago where the woman had to go help take care of the mother, and the guy was really angry and selfish about it, remember? And she was so upset.
Yeah.
Because she's like, my mom is really sick. I have to spend time with my mom. And she was like, why don't you come with me? And he was like, no. And then he was upset that she went too. It's like...
yeah, what are you going to do at that point? And so sometimes what they might need in that moment is extra support, and they don't know how to ask for it. But a lot of times in these situations, it's not that there's anything really wrong with the relationship at all. In fact, they might even be reassuring to you of, man, you have really been there for me and I've been there for you. I wish that we could make this work. I want to find a way for this to work, but it seems really hard for me to. And so sometimes it can be external factors that get in the way of how they want their relationships to go.
Okay.
Yeah. And there can be a feeling of helplessness that goes along with that. Because I imagine if I'm in a very niche job and my partner's in a very niche job that's, in office in a specific place, and it's really hard to advance in your career, and maybe you're really young and you're trying to make good life decisions, but also trying to balance your relationship into that. And, it's one's in China and the other one is in Alabama. It's going to be really hard to make a decision like that. So sometimes it can be life changes.
Absolutely. So part of the reason that we're talking about this is that you understand that it's not black and white. It's not as easy as you think. People aren't ending relationships all the time because they want to. There are things, like we've covered, that are affecting them that they feel like they have to. And, sometimes we take all the blame when really it's not all of our fault. There were other factors that came into the play. Yes, sometimes we were neglectful. That does happen a lot. But it's more complicated than you realize. And also, it's a lot harder for your ex than you realize. Ending a relationship because you feel like you have to rather than you want to is a lot harder than you think. And if you don't believe me, watch the comments from people that felt like they had to do it. They went through a lot of hurt and pain doing something they didn't want to do.
Right. And there's actually studies that highlight and, talk about this whole concept. There was a study done by J.K. Rhodes and his friends back in 2011, where he studied over 1,000 people and looked at the breakups that had happened in their lives. And he looked at tons of different factors. You can look up the study yourself. It's really interesting if you're a nerd like me. So he looked at a bunch of different factors. And one of the factors that they looked at was a person's desire to break up and how they were impacted after the breakup. And what they found was that desire to break up didn't have any correlation with how they felt after the breakup. So in more layman's terms, someone could end a relationship and not want to and still feel very hurt after the relationship ends.
I believe it. I absolutely believe it. But if you keep telling them how you'll change and how you're different and now you'll marry them, that's going to make them angry.
Right.
So you better be careful.
Right.
Those are tricky situations to navigate. But hopefully this has been a helpful video to help you see some of the things that we see behind the scenes on people that break up with somebody because they feel like they had to and they didn't really want to. And that you understand it's not as simple as, well, if they wanted to be with me, they would. No, there was probably a lot of hurt and pain and disappointment and sadness and suffering that went into that decision.
Right. And just another note on that study for you nerds out there is that the study did talk about how the initiator of the breakup may or may not have a high desire to end the relationship, which is a very confusing concept, but really does happen. And in the study, they, were just kind of discussing and speculating. They said that one of those reasons might be out of, fear of rejection and being rejection sensitive. So going back on what you were saying about not being as attuned to your partner, somebody can be afraid of losing you and initiate a breakup at the same time. Super confusing, but I hope that this information can help you realize that there's so much more that goes into it, rather than just, oh, they didn't like you, oh, they didn't love you, that, you smelled funny, something like that. It's really complex.
You get that one a lot. You smell funny. It's because of the whole laundry thing, wasn't it? You did.
Maybe. So there are many, many reasons, and it can be really confusing, but don't look at breakups as just black and white.
Absolutely. And of course, that's what we're here to help you with. Of course, if you want to get our help personally, you could do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype. Coach Victoria is also available for Skype coaching.
I'm here whenever you'd like to chat.
Just click on the website on her name to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.